Welcome to Compassionate World. I'm vegan empowerment coach Mariquita Solis, and I'm joined today by Bharath from the Vegan Community Support Team. In today's conversation, we reflect on what drives a person to stand up for the voiceless and how deep empathy can transform the world. This is a dialogue rooted in justice, kindness, and the courage to act. We're honored to be joined by Linda Middlesworth and Philip Wollen as they share what sparks compassion-driven advocacy, stories from their personal journeys and global impact, why protecting animals and people go hand in hand, and how compassion is key to building a just and humane world. Let's open our hearts to this powerful exchange and be reminded of what's possible when we lead with compassion. At the vegan community, we're building a space where everyday vegans grow into confident communicators, collaborative leaders, and resilient visionaries, supported by peer groups, mentorship, and mission-aligned partnerships. We're now inviting 200 founding heroes to help us co-create this movement where passion fuels progress, vegan voices rise, and collective action drives change for animals, the natural world, and our shared future. As a founding hero, you'll have a chance to grow your visibility as a trusted vegan voice and connect with more clients, customers, or collaborators who share your values. With lifetime access to a platform that helps you share your message, grow your vegan business, and collaborate with aligned change makers around the world. So we'll put that link in the chat for you to learn more. So right now, I'd like to invite you to join me for a very short meditation just to get us in the grounding, the correct energy of peace. So if you feel like it, I invite you to close your eyes and just to sit quietly and just to breathe deeply down into your hips, down into your legs, down into the soles of your feet, connecting with all the animals in this world, seeing them for who they are, feeling their spirit of compassion and love for us as we send this to them, a circle of kindred spirits. Feel this love flowing in this sacred space. These beautiful creatures all have a powerful place on this planet. We send them love, and we are their voice. Just hold this energy inside your heart as we honor and celebrate all of us in this space for all the work we're doing for animals, for our voices, and for this profound empathy we have for our planet. Breathing this in and saying, yes, and so it is, and so it shall be. All right. Oh, thank you for joining me in that meditation. All right, today I'd love to introduce our two incredible guests for this conversation. Philip Wollen is an Australian philanthropist and former vice president of Citibank. Once named among Australia's top 40 headhunted executives, he left the corporate world to become a powerful advocate for animal rights and global compassion. A recipient of the Medal of the Order of Australia and Australian of the Year in Victoria, he supports hundreds of humanitarian efforts worldwide and continues to speak out for animals, the environment, and ethical living. Linda Middlesworth is a certified Food for Life instructor and expert in whole food, plant-based living. She creates spaces where people can explore lifestyle change without guilt or pressure. So we will be taking questions at the end of the session, so make sure you put your questions in the chat. All right, so I'm going to hand this over to Linda to begin this empowering conversation with Philip Wollen.
Thank you, Mariquita. I'm so excited to be here with one of my favorite people on earth, Philip Wollen. I'm not kidding. He is seriously, I call him the Martin Luther King of the vegan movement. And that might be an insult for all I know, because he's amazing and incredible human being. I've been watching him for years now, and I can't believe what he accomplishes on behalf of our innocent, precious animals on this earth. It is just amazing. So with that, I'd like to say to you, put your questions early if you have any, because we might not get to all of them because we only have an hour. So do that. Um, anyway, Philip, I have a few questions for you. The first one is, what areas and types of projects do you support?
Thank you, Linda. I call them my five fingers, and I focus on children, animals, the environment, the terminally ill, and aspiring youth. So far, I support about 850 projects in 54 countries. And I build things like schools, orphanages, shelters, sanctuaries, providing food and medicines, biogas plants, ambulances, bore wells, ships, whale and seal rescue centers, primate sanctuaries, disaster relief, funds for the homeless, scholarships, oncology and stroke units, protecting the terminally ill, and of course, sponsoring sport and films. I also provide for the last 30 odd years the Kindness Gold Medal and cash prize. And it's been given to people like Jane Goodall, T. Colin Campbell, Sir David Attenborough, Maneka Gandhi, Chini Krishna, Sailesh Rao, Jill Robinson, and many others over the years. So that's fundamentally what I do.
That is absolutely incredible, in so many areas. Also, I know that um, you became a vegan, and why?
Well, there was a time when my favorite food was filet mignon and lobster, a fact for which I'm so profoundly ashamed today. Now, decades ago, as a merchant banker, I was given the mandate to advise a conglomerate of, of companies by a major client. And he had interests in many different industries. And one of the companies that he owned turned out to be a slaughterhouse, which I attended. And what I saw there that day terrified me. And I went vegetarian immediately. But I didn't know anything at all about dairy. I thought calves lived in bucolic surroundings of meadows with butterflies and streams and the poetry of Keats, Shelley, and Wordsworth. And then I was on a business trip to India. And walking down the street one day, I saw a dairyman dragging his injured cow to the slaughterhouse. The cow had been hit by a lorry and had broken her spine. And to get her to move, he was throwing chili powder into her eyes and shoving sharp objects up her anus. And beside her was a skinny, scrawny, starving calf. Well, when he got to the gates of the slaughterhouse and before he handed the animal over to the slaughterman, the bastard milked her. So even at the end of her life, she was still being abused by human beings. Now, if that doesn't change the heart of a man, nothing will. So when I came back to Australia, I studied the dairy industry and I discovered that milk is meat in liquid form and dairies are gulags of despair. And it was then that I never actually became vegan. I just discovered that my belt, my shoes, my clothes, and my food contain no animal products. So I never actually became vegan. I just discovered one day that is who I was.
So that's amazing. A very hard way to find out. And most people never see a dairy farm. They're all hidden, they're not transparent here in the United States. And a lot of people don't even know that 50% of the cows right now in California have bird flu. They're in quarantine.
Yeah.
And we have more cows than any other state in the nation.
Right.
And the bird flu was going to be the worst pandemic ever. It's going to make COVID look like a walk in the park. But one thing you always say, and I use it now all the time, every time I talk to somebody, I say they are gulags of despair. I love that statement so much because it just describes it so well. It's really a gulag and it's despair. So thank you for that. So what made you leave your very successful career, amazing career at such a young age, to become an activist and a major donor to so many causes?
Well, they say that you always remember your first love, but not for me. I have no recollection at all. But I do remember my first hate, and that was my hatred for animal cruelty. And that hatred has grown exponentially over the years. You see, cruelty is not a bug in the animal industrial complex, in that system. It's a feature of the system. And that system cannot be repaired. It can only be replaced. So what made me decide on my mantra? To take nothing but pictures, own nothing but memories, leave nothing but footprints, kill nothing but time. You see, something happened to me. I'd been to Dante's Inferno, but unlike Dante Alighieri, I didn't have Beatrice for my love or Virgil for my guide. I heard the screams of my dying father as his body was ravaged by the many cancers that killed him. And I realized I'd heard those screams before. In the slaughterhouse, on the cattle ships to the Middle East, and a dying mother whale as a harpoon explodes in her brain as she called out to her calf. Their cries were the cries of my father. They were identical. And I discovered that when we suffer as equals. And in their capacity to suffer, a dog is a pig, is a bear, is a boy. Now, the astrophysicist Carl Sagan had a photograph taken from the Voyager spacecraft showing planet Earth, an insignificant speck in space, lost in a cloud of galaxies. Our beautiful home, our pale blue dot, suspended on a sunbeam. That's what he said. What an arresting, captivating, enchanting thought. Our pale blue dot, suspended on a sunbeam. Well, today, our beautiful home, humans comprise 30% of the biomass of land mammals. Animals in slaughterhouses are 66%, and wild animals living naturally have been decimated down to 4%. 70% of all the birds on the planet's descendants from the dinosaurs are in cages awaiting slaughter. We have turned Carl Sagan's beautiful blue planet Earth into blood-stained planet slaughterhouse. Today, 1 billion people are hungry. 20 million people will die this year from malnutrition. Cutting meat by only 10% will feed 100 million people, and eliminating meat will end malnutrition forever. And poor countries sell their grain to the West for hard currency, whilst their own children starve in their arms, and the West feeds it to livestock. So we can eat a steak. Am I the only one who sees this as a crime? Believe me, every morsel of meat we eat is slapping the tear-stained face of a hungry child. When I look into her eyes, do I remain silent? If everyone ate a Western diet, we'd need 2 planet Earths to feed us. We've only got one, and she is dying. The Earth can produce enough food for everyone's need, but not enough for everyone's greed. Now, in human history, only 100 billion human beings have ever lived. 8 billion people are alive today. And we humans torture and kill 2 billion sentient, living, loving animals every week. We stab and suffocate 1 billion ocean animals every 8 hours. If humans were killed at the same rate, we'd be wiped out in 1 weekend. Trillions of fish are ground up alive into pellets to feed to livestock. Vegetarian cows are now the world's largest ocean predators. The oceans are dying in our time. By the next generation, all our fisheries will be dead, the lungs and the arteries of the earth. and oceans sequester more CO2 than all the forests of the world put together. Every second breath of oxygen we take was produced in the ocean. And we use the ocean as a private pantry and as a public toilet. The Pacific Gyre now is so full of plastic junk and human feces, it has created a floating footprint bigger than India. 10,000 entire species are wiped out every year because of the actions of one species. And we now face the 6th mass extinction in cosmological history. If any other organism did this, a biologist would call it a virus. It is a crime of unimaginable proportions. So I say that veganism is the Swiss Army knife of a sustainable future. One instrument solves our ethical, economic, environmental, water, health problems, and ends animal cruelty forever. So this is where we work today. In China, thousands of magnificent moon bears, their limbs torn off in traps, are imprisoned in steel coffins welded shut as a catheter drains bile into a bucket which the Chinese drink. In Korea, dogs are beaten to death in the marketplace because butchers believe that pain and suffering makes the meat tasty. In South Africa, 5,000 captive lions are drugged and killed with guns, spears, or torn apart by hunting dogs, and they call it sport. In Canada, 300,000 baby seal pups are clubbed and skinned alive on the ice, their tiny hearts still beating. And in Australia, my country, we killed 90 million docile kangaroos who adorn our coat of arms, the largest land animal slaughter on the planet, a pox on our house. And we send millions of our animals born on Australian soil on death ships to the Middle East, where their eyes are stabbed out and their tendons are slashed for 30 pieces of silver. Every penny I invested in the Basatine slaughterhouses in Cairo was utterly wasted. And in Asia, dogs are suspended on hooks and skinned alive for trim and fur coats sold in the West. Dolphins and whales are stabbed to death in the shallows of Taiji in the Faroe Islands, and entire bays are blood red. 100 million sharks are torn from the sea, their fins hacked off, and they're tossed overboard to die agonizing deaths for shark fin soup. And sharks were here before trees, before dinosaurs. They've survived 5 mass extinctions. And we, puny biped, reptilian-brained mammals with an opposable thumb, will wipe them out in 1 generation. And factory farms spew chemicals into the ocean, creating hypoxic dead zones of 1 million square kilometers, killing coral, plants, and ocean animals. We are clear felling and strip mining the ocean floor, creating a sterile moonscape. And so-called unviable dairy cows, who cannot be sold for veal, are killed by farmers smashing in their skulls or jumping on their rib cages and crushing their hearts. And billions of tiny little baby chicks are ground up alive in mechanical mincers simply because they are male. Most recently, we're learning that the Antarctic sea ice, so vital for krill and a foundation food for all sea life, is plummeting, starving whales, penguins, and seals to death, and deploying those massive nets big enough to swallow a jumbo jet. For pet food, livestock, and fish farms, another ecological disaster. I'm sure you know that it takes 10 kilos of wild-caught fish to produce 1 kilo of bluefin tuna. Only 29% of pregnant humpback whales carried to term. 3 years ago, it was 86%. Now, I often say the most beautiful word ever written at any time, in any language, in any country in human history, came from India, from the Upanishads 3,000 years ago. Ahimsa, non-violence to any living being. To follow that mantra, by definition, we must be vegan. And it's a beautiful word, not because it describes our nationality, our politics, our religion, our diet, or our lifestyle, but because it describes our character. It says we oppose violence whenever and wherever it occurs. And that is why I am a vegan and why I'm a major donor to these great causes.
Thank you, Philip. That is depressing a little bit, but we're going to talk about that later because I know the gulags of despair are just everywhere on every animal, and even so many starving people for no reason whatsoever. It is crazy. So do you think there are certain countries that are worse than other countries, just as a question?
No, I think we're all equally culpable in our own ways. It doesn't matter where you find the intersection of human and non-human animal connections, you will find cruelty and exploitation with no exceptions. And that is
Yeah.
a fact.
I've had Indian friends of mine who live here tell me that, don't worry, Linda, we treat the cows so nicely. And because of their religion, sometimes they take them across the border to Pakistan to have them killed there. And I don't know how much of that is going on, but I said, you know what? How would you like it if your mother was breastfeeding a child and someone came along and took the child and you took the milk from your mother and made money from it? Does that sound right to you? That's still exploiting the poor mom, right? That's the only way I could try to explain it, because I think because it was raised kindly, it's our family cow. You know, it didn't make any sense to me, but people have a hard time understanding that's still exploitation.
Linda, it's completely disingenuous. India has the world's largest dairy herd. India is the
Oh,
second largest exporter of bovines, no
oh,
exception. So the cruelty
really?
that exists in India is every bit as egregious as you'd see in the Middle East, in the United States, or anywhere in Asia or Africa for that matter. It is an absolute fact.
Oh, I didn't know that. Thank you for that. I didn't have that clarified. I thought maybe they are at least nicer to their cows, but
No,
it doesn't sound
that's
like
simply it's simply not true. I found 55 projects in India, starting us up north in Chandigarh, going all the way down to Bangalore. I know the terrain. I've been going there for 30 years. I'm very familiar with it. But Indian activism is very strong, and that's a good counterbalance. But anyway, that's it.
that. Do they feed Indian cows fish like we do? They're vegetarian, which makes them sick, which makes you have to give them antibiotics. And they feed cows candy and all kinds of crap just to fill them up.
Yeah.
So I don't know what India, if they do that too.
I made a film called The Plastic Cow, about the plastic in the street. Whenever you drive around the streets of India, you will see cows at the side of the road. There is not a single cow on the streets of India. And we've operated on 100 of them and filmed this. Uh, every cow would have at least 60 pounds of plastic or wire or syringes in one of their stomachs. Um,
In India.
we took in India. We took a case to the Honorable Supreme Court in New Delhi, and the Honorable Court said that plastic poses a greater threat to India than thermonuclear war. But we can come back to that during the Q&A.
Okay, wow. So your speeches have reached tens of millions of people. How do they respond to the uncomfortable truths?
Yeah. Well, the response is a bit like the curate's egg, good in parts. But I encourage them all to simply listen to the facts. Like the Russian Matryoshka nesting dolls, each doll has an appealing, unique story. So I simply lay out the narrative that resonates with this kind of diversity. cruelty, greenhouse gas emissions, land resources, cancers, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, burgeoning health budgets, water wastage, animal rights, and I always use, where necessary, allusions to theology, ethics, literature. After all, it is a broad church. Everyone is welcome. But essentially, facts matter, and all consequences must be calibrated. Livestock, as you know, releases more greenhouse gases than all of transport put together. Cars, trains, buses, ships, lorries, the lot. The Himalayan ice fields, correctly called the third pole, irrigate half the world's population through the Indus, the Ganges, the Brahmaputra, the Irrawaddy River, the Yangtze, the Mekong, and the Yellow Rivers. And these glaciers are melting fast. I delivered, when these glaciers and the Siberian permafrost release their sequestered gas, we have a ticking time bomb. I delivered a speech in the Rajiv Gandhi Center to 2,000 Indian entrepreneurs in New Delhi, including Amartya Sen, who was sitting in the front row, and he just won India's Nobel Prize in Economics. And I mentioned to Mohammed Yunus after he won the Nobel, all the good that he had done through Grameen Bank would vanish when Bangladesh drowns, to say nothing about Manila, Mumbai, Calcutta, Ho Chi Minh City, and Bangkok. Then I delivered a speech with Dr. Peter Doherty, who'd won Australia's Nobel Prize in medicine. And then we had dinner with Al Gore and discussed exactly the same algorithms. No argument at all from 4 Nobel laureates, only from the reckless meat lobby. So Upton Sinclair was right. It is impossible to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on him not understanding it. And here in the West, we freak out when 1,000 refugees arrive on our shores. Just imagine greenhouse gas emissions hitting 500 parts per million, or a 3-degree temperature rise, creating 100 million eco-refugees. You would know, of course, that Admiral Denny McGinn, who's the chief of US warfighting requirements, he said that we have learned that nations will raid and invade long before they starve. This calamity will reshape the geopolitical landscape forever. We're facing the perfect storm. Now, if any nation had developed weapons that could wreak such havoc on the planet, we would launch a preemptive military strike and bomb it back into the Bronze Age. But we can't, because it's not a rogue state. It's an industry. The good news is we don't have to bomb it. We can just stop buying it. So George Bush was wrong. The axis of evil does not run through Iraq, Iran, or North Korea. It runs through our dining tables. Weapons of mass destruction are our knives and forks, and increasingly nowadays, our chopsticks. Now, I addressed the Parliament of World Religions, and I said that the peace map is drawn on a menu. Peace is not just the absence of war, it is the presence of justice. And justice must be blind to race, color, religion, and to species. If it is not blind, it will be used as a weapon of terror. And there is unimaginable terror in those ghastly gulags we call slaughterhouses, where Lord Acton said, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Now, Leo Tolstoy said that as long as there are slaughterhouses, there will be battlefields. We know that it was the blood of animals that first stained our weapons. So I say that talking about peace whilst still killing animals is like loving literature and burning books. They are mutually exclusive ideas. They're incompatible in the same way that science is incompatible with the Flat Earth Society.
Yeah.
A peaceful and sustainable future is possible, but only if it is vegan.
Yeah.
Now, you might have heard me talk about the Anglo-Indian Nobel laureate Rudyard Kipling, who wrote of young men dying in World War I. And if they ask you why we died, tell them that our fathers lied. That
Oh,
legacy of lies continues today. Everything we think we know about the meat and dairy industry is a preposterous lie. See, the world is crying out today for only two things: leadership and the truth. The wise Chinese have a term for it: Zhengjiao. Listen to the friend who tells you the truth, even when it hurts. So let's just tell the truth fearlessly and forcefully. That is what the Sanskrit word satyagraha means, the truth force.
mhm.
Now, Victor Hugo said that there is nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. But I say there is nothing more destructive than a bad idea whose time has passed. The
Mhm.
time for meat has passed. Now, Brendan Kennelly in the book of Judas wrote, if you want to serve your age, betray it. Well, what does that mean, to betray your age? It means expose its lies, humiliate its conceits, debunk its arrogance, and condemn them to face harsher truths.
Mhm.
Alma Toffler said that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. I have long admired Count Moltke, the great Prussian general, a soldier who preferred to think rather than to speak, a man silent in 7 languages.
Mm.
See, it takes courage to stand up and speak, but it also takes courage to sit down and listen. And thankfully, most of my audiences are prepared to listen.
Oh, that's wonderful. Um, so it is, you've traveled so widely, and I know you speak all over the world. I know you're in a lot of movies, and your speeches are so profound. However, I must look up some words in the dictionary when I'm reading them. I have to be honest. So it takes me a long time sometimes to get through your speeches, but once I get there, I love them. And thank you for that. So what places affected you the most and why in your travel?
As you can imagine, Linda, I've been in the course of my life to many sad places. Dachau in Germany, Gallipoli in Turkey, Corregidor in the
Mm,
Philippines, Jallianwala Bagh in India, Kunta Kinte Island in the Gambia, the tunnels in Cu Chi in Vietnam, Portland and Port Arthur in Australia, the World Trade Center in New York City, Sharpeville and Soweto in South Africa, just to name a few. And
mhm.
all of them are grim reminders of what the great historian Barbara Tuchman defined as folly. Folly is acting against our own best interests.
Mhm,
So, as you see, I speak to audiences in many countries, some
mhm,
small audiences, 100
mhm,
people, some bigger at 5,000 people.
mhm.
And they're all good, decent, caring, loving people, and they all want to change the world, as long as they don't have to change themselves. But
No.
life doesn't work that way. First, we change in our hearts, and then the world follows.
Mhm,
Alas, we are a largely profoundly reckless species. Oxford University calculated that getting animals off the menu could save $30 trillion in health and environmental damage alone. And I've
mhm,
calculated that antibiotics pumped into farm animals cause antimicrobial resistance in humans and will
mhm.
kill 10 million people per annum by 2050,
Ah,
costing the global economy $100 trillion. Now, that is 60 times as much as the whole world spends on aircraft carriers, missiles, bombs, bullets, destroyers, tanks, planes, guns, and spies. So I see with horror as I travel. I visited cathedrals and temples and mosques and shrines all around the world. And these wonderful edifices are sources of spiritual nourishment on every days and holy days, in moments of joy and in sorrow, in times of war, pandemics, flood, fire, drought, and doubt. There is a special quality in all sacred sites. So I ask you, what kind of person would dare to, for example, smash the black stone in the Kaaba and the Grand Mosque in Mecca, the most revered site in Islam? Or chip souvenirs of Meenakshi temple sculptures in Madurai in India, dedicated by Hindus to Lord Shiva? Or have a barbecue at the Manalakshi truth, so beloved by the Jains? Or urinate, for example, on the western wall of the old city in Jerusalem, revered by the Jews? Or graffiti the ceiling of Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel in the Vatican, beloved by Catholics? Or defecate in Angkor Wat in Cambodia, revered by the Buddhists? Or drink alcohol in the Golden Temple in Amritsar, so sacred to the Sikhs? Or spray obscenities on St. Paul's Cathedral in London, where Anglicans celebrate Christmas and Easter? Or jet ski through the torii gates of Itsukushima Shrine in Japan, sacred in Shintoism? Or dump rubbish in the Lotus Temple in Delhi, so loved by the Baha'is? Or for secular people, vandalize Stonehenge, the pyramids, the Statue of David in Florence, the Mona Lisa in Paris, Picasso's Guernica in Madrid, or the Taj Mahal in Agra, or Zedwan's Spring Festival on the River in China? No decent human being would even contemplate committing such an atrocity. But the same human beings have no hesitation in vandalizing and trashing the greatest cathedrals and temples and wonders of the natural world, laying waste to the oceans, rivers and lakes, mountains, valleys, rainforests, the air, the aquifers, and glaciers. And naturally, the consequences of this barbarism will be dire, indiscriminate, and terminal. And as usual, the innocent, the powerless will suffer first and the most.
What is your favorite project right now? And why?
Favorite is an interesting word, but one that I'm working on quite intensely nowadays and investing heavily is in the oceans. Industrial fishing, as you know, is a significantly criminal enterprise. Fish laundering, money laundering, tax evasion, slavery, drug dealing, human rights violations, assault, even murder. Artisanal fishers in these areas, particularly in West Africa, are going hungry. Small wonder that they resort to piracy. I hope everyone will read Richard Ellis's book, The Empty Ocean. Very recently, I sat in the boardroom in West Africa with the Minister of Fisheries, the Chief of the Public Service, the Navy Commandant, the Coast Guard, and fisheries officers. And I met fishermen with their nets and their pirogues, and I played soccer with their children on the beach. And they are hungry. In Gabon, we boarded and arrested one ship with a legitimate license to fish for shrimp. 99.8% of the animals in the fish hold were bycatch. That is the real price you pay for a shrimp cocktail. Luckily, we had the minister on board, and he immediately banned shrimp fishing in Gabonese waters. So I loathe the tasteless, gormless cretins gorging themselves on shrimp cocktails in the Polar Bar in New York and the Homestead Steakhouse in the meatpacking district of Manhattan, who proudly slug you $40 for 4 shrimp. So right now we have MOUs with 7 nations in Africa. We've arrested 100 criminal ships from China and the European Union. Their officers have been put in jail. 25 million euros in fines have been imposed on the ship owners. And that money is being used to replenish the treasuries of these poor countries. The fish are returning. The kids are no longer hungry. They're going to school. We are rebuilding economies. And we're doing the same thing in Tuvalu, in the Pacific. And in June, I'll be going up to the world's newest country, which will be born shortly thereafter, a new country called Bougainville. So that is one project that gives me great joy. But as I say, we have 800 and it's hard to compare them. They're all different.
I don't know how you keep track of so many projects and time zones too. Wow. That's so wonderful. Thank you for that. Was it hard to go vegan for you? And do you have any regrets? I think I know the answer to that.
Well, as I traveled around the world, as in my job as a merchant banker, it dawned on me that there were literally hundreds of animal species I did not eat. Dogs or cats, bears or bats, horses or hamsters, rosellas or rats. I ate none of them, nor did I drink the milk of goats, cats, or yaks. So I simply decided to go 5 animals more. I just added cows, sheep, pigs, chickens, and fish. It was easy.
Mhm.
I didn't crave lamb any more than I crave lion. I didn't miss beef any more than I missed bandicoot. I didn't miss chicken any more than I missed chimpanzee. And I didn't miss pork any more than I missed porcupine. I replaced dead animals with an astounding variety of delicious, healthy plant foods. And I feel better for it. I sleep peacefully, I have boundless energy, and I care more deeply for my
Mhm.
family, my friends, for strangers I've never met, for causes I've only heard about, for ideas, for the arts, music, poetry, literature, sport, adventure. Everything of beauty comes more alive, more vividly, more subtly, and more completely. I didn't know what I was missing. So regrets, yes, I've had a few, but going vegan is not one of them. My greatest regret is that I didn't do it sooner.
Yeah.
So restaurants that dress up a dead animal dish don't fool me for a second. I know they're in the business of putting lipstick on a corpse. And restaurant reviews are gastronomic porn. So I say to vegans, you've already won the ethical, environmental, and health debate hands down. An ethical vegan does not need the approval of the meat lobby any more than a Nobel laureate needs the approval of the village idiot. So my message is simple: go vegan. You won't regret it, not for a second. The animals will thank you for it. The planet will thank you for it. You will never look back. I give you my word.
Oh, that's beautiful. Um, so do you have hope?
All of the facts that you and I and your audience see indicates that for humans, this is going to be our final century. Sir Martin Rees, the great man, who was also the Astronomer Royal in England, has written elegantly on the subject. Notwithstanding, the numbers alone give me hope. Now, the anthropologist Margaret Mead said, never doubt that a few committed people can change the world. Indeed, that is the only thing that ever has. Well, I agree. There are only 13 million Jews in the world, but they play such a vibrant role in international affairs. Look at the number of Nobel Prizes they win every year. Trix and I sat in the stadium in the Olympics full of pride as Australia, with only 20-odd million people, smaller than Florida, won more medals than every country in the world except for the United States, China, and Russia. Tibet's population is only 3 million. The population of Ukraine is 40 million. There are 12 million Uyghurs, 6 million Syrian refugees, 1 million Rohingyas. Now, is there anyone who hasn't heard of the plight of the Ukrainians, the Tibetans, the Uyghurs, the Syrians, or the Rohingya? No. But there are over 600 million vegans and vegetarians in the world. 600 million. We are bigger than the United States, England, France, Germany, Spain, Italy, Canada, Australia, all put together. If we were one nation, we would be bigger than the 27 nations of the European Union. We are bigger than NATO. We are bigger than OPEC. We are bigger than the 11 members of ASEAN. We are bigger than the 29 nations of Latin America and the Caribbean combined. We are bigger than WANA, the 25 nations of West Asia and North Africa combined. We are bigger than the 22 Arab nations combined. We're bigger than all the Warsaw Pact countries, including the old Soviet Union, combined. And we are bigger than every religion in the world, excluding Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism combined.
Oh,
And despite this massive demographic footprint, we are still drowned out by the raucous hunt and shoot and kill and cretins who believe that violence is the answer when it should not even be a question. So we talk about hope. Yes, I have hope. In Alexander Dumas' masterpiece, The Count of Monte Cristo, Edmond Dantes, an innocent man is imprisoned in the harshest of conditions, and a fellow prisoner and priest, Abbe Faria, tells him, all human wisdom is contained in two words, wait and hope. So like Cornel West, the African-American philosopher, I too am a prisoner of hope. And his term, audacious hope, inspired Obama's masterpiece, The Audacity of Hope. Now, in 1879, William James wrote a great essay called Sentiment of Rationality and described faith as being the courage to act when doubt is warranted. So perhaps Paul's first epistle to the people of Corinth was right. Maybe faith, hope, and love does abide after all. You may recall that Hesiod in 700 BCE wrote about the curse Zeus placed on the head of Pandora. And despite all his dire warnings, her girlish curiosity forced her to open the gift box, releasing all the curses that plagued mankind: sorrow, disease, violence, greed, madness, and death. Mortified, she relents in terror at what she is unleashed by her own stupidity. She opens the jar again and releases the last element still in the jar and lets it fly out. It was hope.
oh,
Albert Camus wrote in Return to Tipasa, in the depths of winter, I learned that within me lay an invincible summer. So yes, I do have hope. When all else fails, I will always have hope. And for me, at least, that is something. And for me, that is enough.
thank you. Thank you. You give me hope just listening to you.
That's beautiful. Linda, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to, we have just a little bit more time and I wanted to try to get some questions in, if that's okay. I hate to step on y'all, but also remind you about Founding Heroes, which amplifies our impact. Your support enables us to unite the vegan world, empower ambassadors, and inspire change. So please check out the vegan community. If you don't like doing the back end stuff, the vegan community will help you be seen and elevated. All right. So are we good to start the Q&A?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. So the first question we have is, any tips on talking to family? I just visited my brother who has Dupuytren's contracture, also called Viking's disease. He has nodules in his hands that are contracting his fingers, and yet he wouldn't even hear a word about how a plant-based diet might help. So any
To leave
tips?
that to Linda, perhaps, or would you like me to?
Go ahead, Philip, you're first.
Okay. I always believe that you meet people where they are. If he's not prepared to discuss the health benefits, quite often people consider other issues involved, particularly when they're suffering. They identify quite closely with the suffering of others. I know I've funded some orphanages and hospices, etc., and I'm always amazed at how compassionate people in those dire conditions are, how compassionate they are to others. So maybe you could appeal to his sense of solidarity with others who are going through not the same thing, but equally dire conditions. But it's in this movement, one size doesn't fit all. We meet people courteously, politely, firmly, and with caring. And we must learn sometimes to let go and let people make their own choices.
Okay, thank you, Philip. That's a perfect answer. Go ahead, Mariquita.
All righty. What was the first moment you realized animals might deserve more than just our care, but our full respect?
It's interesting. When you go to law school, they teach you about this thing called the duty of care. When someone comes to your home, you have a duty of care. When you employ somebody, you have a duty of care to look after them, make sure they're not injured. But nowhere in the world do you ever hear about a duty to care. And I think we have a duty to care. But I should rephrase that. There is a place where it does exist. It's in Section 51, I think, of the Indian Constitution. It's the fundamental duty of every Indian citizen to show compassion to all living beings in the country. So it does exist, but it's something that is observed in the absence rather than in its practice in India.
Thank you, Philip. Here's one. How do you find navigating the health system as a vegan? She said, my husband fell sick a year ago and desperately wanted a vegan doctor to help us through, but they're virtually impossible to find.
Yes, that's absolutely true. Neal Barnard actually discussed this issue in quite some depth. It's becoming a lot easier to find vegan doctors, easier to find vegan menus, vegan restaurants, vegan clothing shops.
And you can do telemarketing. You can do telemarketing with Dr. Neal Barnard too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
If you study people like Sun Tzu or Clausewitz or Bismarck, some of the great strategists, and Napoleon as well, you discover that when you have intelligence right on your side and numbers behind you, you generally win the battle. And I wonder why the vegan community hasn't won this battle already. We've got all the ammunition, so to speak, on our side, plus the ethics. Why haven't we done it? And I hate to admit it, but sometimes I think we need a better type of activist. We need a new breed of activist to come through, which is why I spend so much time nowadays speaking in boardrooms rather than at rallies. It's kind of tiresome to preach to the converted. And I'm having a lot of traction. I gave a speech in India recently to a very large audience, and I was so amazed when people got up and said, as a consequence of this speech, I'm going to turn all our factory canteens to vegetarian. Going vegan in India is very difficult. I concede that. But and some of these guys employ hundreds of thousands of people running 3 shifts a day. So if you have 100,000 people with three shifts a day not eating animals, the exponent of that is you're saving hundreds of millions of animals over the lifetime. So we find our niche, and I think I've found mine for the moment.
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
That's amazing that you reach so many people at once. Go ahead, Mariquita. Next question.
The next question is, what is your happiest vegan story?
I think the one I just described in India was one that gave me a lot of satisfaction. But I've been writing the forwards to so many books, maybe a dozen books recently, and people are not only buying the books and writing to the author, they're also writing to me to say that they were affected by the forward. So I think, although I never use the word vegan because it's been hijacked by the bad guys, so I use the word ahimsan because that is vegan by definition, but it's much more expansive because it also includes violence to yourself. So I think I use the word ahimsa. I coined that new noun 30 years ago, and that too seems to be getting some currency. So I think these are the happy choices and the happy events that have happened to me recently.
Wonderful. All right. So someone is asking if have you run for political office, and would you ever want to do such a thing?
No, I've been asked to do so, but I would be terrible.
Okay, so it looks like they don't think so, that people here don't think so. But okay.
I know you
All
wouldn't
right.
be here in the United States for sure right now. Um, so are there any more questions? Let's see.
Some more questions. What do you
Oh,
find?
okay.
What do you find to be the most effective way to reach people? I've heard some people say it's not fair to put the responsibility on individual customers, and corporations must be held accountable, but you cannot have an ocean without the sum of all of the droplets. Some people advocate more for systematic change, such as policy change to improve animal welfare.
There's certainly true. I'd enlarge it a bit. I'd say to improve animal rights or non-human animal rights. Yes, there is an obligation on businesses. I can't imagine why any business would not want to promote a vegan lifestyle or an ahimsa lifestyle, particularly the meat and dairy industry. Please remember and don't forget this. This is an absolute fact. Meat and dairy are sunset industries. They're on the way out. They can't survive. No other industry apart from the weapons industry kill their own customers. Let's just remember that. So if you want to, and I speak in boardrooms quite frequently, you would be amazed at how amenable the CEO or the chairman of the organization is to listening intently. If you put it in terms in a language they understand without being preachy, they listen. They're not in that position because they're stupid. They're very intelligent people. So if you appeal to them using values that they respect and in using terms that they respect and understand and can identify with, they're all ears. They listen. I gave a talk to a bank recently, and after it was over, the CEO said to me, "You've changed our mind on one very important thing. We were about to sponsor a massive horse race. We won't be doing that now." See?
Oh, that's
That's
great.
wonderful.
That gives me hope.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We only have time for one more question. So here's the last question. How do you find navigating the health system as a vegan? My husband fell sick a year ago, and we desperately wanted to find a vegan doctor to help us through, but they are
Oh, I read
virtually.
that. I
Oh,
read
you
that
did
one.
read it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then I don't know where I was then. Okay. All right. Understanding the reality of animal ag and other cruelty can often feel overwhelming. Is there something about your worldview, or do you have a strategy to not get overwhelmed, hopeless, to continue having compassion for people, and to keep on being such an effective advocate?
Hmm.
You make me sound a lot more intrepid than I really am. But I do feel the things you describe. I do feel down. I feel pain. I do feel the stress of the work I do. But I'm extremely fortunate in so many ways, more than I have the right to expect. I married wisely. And I always know that regardless of how I feel, I always have a soft place to fall. And regardless of how difficult and challenging the work is, it pales into insignificant when I compare it to the suffering of the animal kingdom. And once I put that into perspective, all my problems disappear. After all, I'm here by choice. They are not. I can
Yeah.
walk away. They can't. I don't have a choice. I have a duty. It's a moral obligation. I think in many ways it applies to everyone in this audience. This is what we were born to do. We can do
Very
no.
true.
Thank you. That is beautiful.
Mhm.
I will
Very,
never
very
stop
true.
talking. Yeah. I will never be quiet. as long as I live. And I make everybody watch your film. And if you didn't watch it yet, his international debate on get the animals off the menu, you just Google it. It pops right up. I listen to it like once a month just to inspire myself. Thank you for that. I've memorized it. I
Thank you,
could
Linda.
give it.
The ironic part was it was the first debate I was ever in. I'd never been in a debate before. When they asked
you
me to do it,
won.
I just said yes without. I had a policy at the time. Whatever the question was, I'd always say yes, and it got me into a lot of trouble.
Oh, you got into good trouble, I think. Thank you so much, Philip.
Y'all, I want to thank everyone right now, and we're going to let Linda and Philip give the last words, but I wanted to thank you for joining this session. And remember, our founding heroes are the pillars that keep this series alive. And we have more online events. We've got Dr. Silas Rao coming up on Friday, so please go check out the vegancommunity.com for the events, because we are building this movement with you. It's together. Our strong voice is making a difference. So now I just am so grateful to you, Linda, and to you, Philip. And I would love to let you have your final words to the audience.
Philip?
Philip?
I haven't given this any thought. I'm just thinking of the closing lines of the Great Gatsby. So we beat on boats against the tide, drawn back ceaselessly into the past. I ask you, are we to live forever in a sick, smug, and cruel past? Let's not relive history. Let's make history, because that is what leaders do. They make history. And we only have one life. I'm going to get this wrong, but Irving Stone wrote a book 40 years ago. I think it was called The Prize, about the Nobel Prize. He said, if I get it correctly, the last paragraph was, life is not a daily dying, a dust to dust, ashes to ashes. It's a soaring and blinding gift snatched from eternity. We have no right to take away the lives of others. Our life is snatched from eternity. Let's preserve, protect, cherish it, because that's what we're here for. Yes,
we are. Thank you so much, Philip. I so agree with everything you say, everything you write, everything you do. And I feel that that's my life's purpose, and I will never stop talking. I try to talk to at least 5 people per day in a nice way. I don't get preachy. I just tell them what's going on, and they get interested. So I think if we all do that, if we can all get 5 persons a day, guess what we could do? We could really change the world. So thank you so much, Philip and Mariquita and Barat, for sponsoring our vegan community, the vegan community, because we are building this vegan community. We want to make it worldwide. So with your help, we can do that. So please join us at thevegancommunity.com. And thank you for being here, Philip. I know you traveled a long way to get here for this meeting, and I so appreciate you. I adore you. I love you. I mean, I could go on. So
thank you,
anyway,
Linda.
thank you.
Thank you, Mariquita.
It's just wonderful.
All right. Thank you all. What a blessing this has been.
Be good.
So you too.
Bye.